Welcome, everyone, to Coffee with a Codex. My name is Dot Porter. I'm a curator in the Schoenberg Institute for Manuscript Studies in the Kislak Center for Special Collections, Rare Books and Manuscripts at the University of Pennsylvania Libraries. The Schoenberg Institute, or SIMS as we call it, is a research and development institute focused on manuscript studies. We do a lot of digital projects, and we also have a substantial manuscript collection, a couple of different manuscript collections actually. And once a week, I like to go to the shelf and pull off one of these manuscripts so I can do a little show and tell. If you have been here before, welcome back. I'm always glad to have people back. If this is your first time, welcome. This will be a 30-minute, really informal, as I say, kind of show and tell with the manuscript. If you have questions or things to say as we go along, type them in the chat. I'll keep my eye on the chat. Also, my colleague Amy Hutchins is on the call. She will also check the chat. She is our manuscripts cataloging librarian, and she also is incredibly knowledgeable about our collections and manuscripts in general. I am really excited to be here, so let's get started. So this manuscript that we're looking at today is shelf mark 1329. Let me make sure I got that right. Yes, 1329, De Canticis Canticorum. It's actually a commentary on the biblical book, the Song of Songs, which is from the Old Testament, and it is basically a love poem. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a sec. First, since we're looking at this book, the book itself was written in Italy between about 1200 and 1230. So the first quarter or so of the 13th century in Italy, probably northern Italy. And the binding is later. The binding is leather over not wooden boards, but more like a kind of cardboard. There we go. And it's probably 15th century. A fair amount of the information in our catalog record comes from Les Illuminaires, which is the bookseller in Chicago from whom we bought them, and that identification of the cover as 15th century is from them. So we'll take a look at the back as well. There we can see a little bit. There's been a bookworm chomping a little bit just in the edges of the binding, but it doesn't, well, no, I said it doesn't look like it. There's these little holes here are also, these are little bookworm holes. Bookworms don't tend to eat through parchment. So this manuscript is made of parchment, which is animal skin. So there's a little bit of that, but it won't go very far into the manuscript here. All right, so as I said, this is a 13th century copy of a commentary on the Song of Solomon by Haimo of Auxerre, who was a 9th century theologian. I think he was a monk. And he wrote several commentaries and also sermons that survive. And his commentary on the Song of Solomon was particularly well-known and popular and copied. So I think there's something like more than 160 copies of this text that survive from the Middle Ages. And you've got to think he wrote it in the 9th century, and this is 13th century. So already this is a few hundred years into the existence of this particular commentary. The Song of Solomon, as a biblical book, was, in addition to Haimo of Auxerre's commentary being very popular, it was just a book that people wrote commentaries on throughout the Middle Ages. And I think it's because God is not mentioned in the Song of Solomon. It's essentially set off as a love poem, not only a love poem, but fairly erotic. The language that's used in there is like, talking about the breasts of my lover and et cetera, et cetera. And so I think it was sort of a challenge for theologians and monks and thinkers to how am I going to make this align with my theological thinking. And they did it in various ways, including explaining it as a poem about the relationship between Christ and the church, or Christ and people. I think I haven't read Haimo of Exeter's commentary, but I think it was sort of a more general, it's about the church kind of commentary. So I'll start flipping through so we can get a general idea of what's happening here. And the thing that you're probably going to notice, you might notice a couple of things. There's a few things that I noticed very quickly. One is that there is these red lines that are kind of framing the text on the sides. And we often see framing lines in manuscripts as part of the ruling. This manuscript also has line ruling, so I'm gonna, let's see, I can zoom in a little bit and we can get a closer. You can see that underneath each line of text, there's an actual line there that goes across. And there's also a framing line that goes up, which does not align. Oh no, look, there's two lines, one of which has been outlined in red and the other one that isn't, because the red doesn't go all the way up there. That's interesting. And this is something you see a lot because scribes needed guidelines, literal guidelines for how to write, to keep the text straight. And so part of the preparation of a manuscript would be to create these guidelines, which it's called ruling, or ruling lines. And so that's what's happening there. It's less usual to have it in a color like this. Like, they're really drawing attention to these lines here. And I can kind of see why they're doing it on the outside, because the second thing that you're going to notice, or that I noticed, are these little circles. There's other shapes too, but these shapes out in the margin, which has text in them. And they're kind of decorated, and they also have this sort of yellow highlight. Like, these are important little things. So what is going on here? Well, I said that it's a commentary on the Song of Solomon. And what the scribe has done in laying the text out this way, you have the commentary as the main text. So this text here is the commentary on the Song of Solomon. And what is out in the margin is the quotes of these. This is the biblical text out here. So we'll have a section here of explanation or gloss or commentary on some line of the Bible, and then you actually have the line of the Bible out here. What's interesting about so this is really interesting, because thinking about glossed manuscripts, they usually do the opposite. So you would expect to see the biblical text as the main, quote unquote, main text, and then the commentary on the margin. And that's why I have these leaves. So I'm going to put this aside for a sec. So think about how this looks on the page. And then I'm going to get the other two leaves, which are slightly different from each other. And we're just going to have a quick look at them. So this one is dated to 1150. So this is earlier than our manuscript here. But this is dated to 1150, and it is I think it's John gloss. No, this is a glossed Psalter leaf. So you can see that there is text. Again, we have these very clear framing lines in black. There are also lines between the text to keep the text straight. The large text is the psalm text. So each one of these is a line, and the first, instead of being written with each psalm line on a physical line, it's differentiated by the red initials. So each red initial is the start of a line of the psalm. And then we have different levels actually of commentary here. So we have the marginal commentary both on the inside. So this is a single leaf. You can see the little holes here. This would have been the gutter. So this is the front of the leaf. And the inside and also on the outside. And then there's also interlinear commentary or glosses here. So this is a little bit shorter, so you've got sort of longer comments out here and then words or shorter things in here. And interestingly, the interlinear glosses also have their own set of ruling lines to keep them straight, that is actually pretty neat. And it speaks to the amount of planning that went into this. This says this manuscript was planned out from the very beginning, because before a single word was written, they had all of these lines out. They knew exactly what they were going to put in there, which I think is just so neat. So that's 1150, glossed Psalter leaf. The next one is about 1200. So this is about a little bit, like around the same time as our manuscript. And I like this one because it's a little bit, it takes up all of the space on the page in a way that I find really delightful. I said, yes, this is the glossed Gospel of John. Again, the larger text is the Gospel text here. And then we also have comments in the margins on both sides and interlinear texts, which also sort of have their own ruling lines. I'll zoom in so you can see that. The ruling here is not quite as neat. It sort of goes off. We've got these lines going all the way off here. But again, it looks like this is really well planned, and that when it was made, the scribe had a really good idea of where it was going, and it's filled up. So if there's a section where there wasn't a commentary, instead of leaving that margin blank like it did in the earlier leaf that we looked at, it just fills it in with the main text, which is pretty neat. All right, Matilda asks, is the fuzzy word a correction? And I think we're looking down. Is this the word here? Yes. So I'm trying to figure out what that key, it does look like somebody scraped that and then rewrote the word. I can't actually tell exactly what that word, thank you, ad patram qui misit. Oh, thank you, Amy, because it just looks like a bunch of, what are the up and down minims to me? Thank you, Amy. Amy's like, I got you. Misit me. So I think that's what happened. I think there was an error, and maybe even the scribe, as they were writing it, scraped it. They would have had a knife. The scribe would have a knife in their hand while they're writing. So knife in the left hand, quill in the right hand if they're right-handed, and then, so that they would have taken care of that easy. But I do think that's what's happening there. So that's pretty neat. Okay, so that was your crash course on how glossed manuscripts usually look. One of the first manuscripts that I got really up close and personal with digitally, not in person, was a manuscript called Vanitas A, which is I believe it's 11th century. It was the earliest complete copy of the Iliad, and it's in Greek, and it's Byzantine, and I got my career started at the University of Kentucky. I was working with computer scientists there, and this manuscript absolutely fascinated me. And it's a glossed manuscript of the Iliad, and it looks so much like those other manuscripts that we just looked at. Those leaves with the main text in the center and the glosses on the side. And it's just really interesting to me that, we see it with Latin manuscripts, we see it with Greek manuscripts. And then we have this guy who also, there are other manuscripts that look like this. We've probably seen them here, and I would actually love to know more about this, the practice of it's really about data and organizing your data and intellectual knowledge. How do we use this technology of the book, which is really limited in terms of how much you can fit on a page and how many pages you can fit in a book realistically, and how can we get both our main text, both the Song of Solomon and the biblical text in there. And clearly there's the ones represented in the leaves, where you have the main text and then other lines, and then you have things like this, which, as I say, I think this is an earlier practice, because I feel like I've seen this in earlier manuscripts, not necessarily that are glossing a main text and then that have the commentary as the main text and what I would call the main text, which is the biblical text, out in the margin, but more like annotations in the margin and the main text in the middle. And I feel like the person who designed this and the scribe who wrote this, maybe same person, I don't know, but they flipped it, sort of flipped the script to create this manuscript, which I don't know if Amy has seen other manuscripts that do this sort of flipping, but I haven't, and I think it's really neat. Let's see. Other things. So that's all I have to say about the glossing aspect. Now we can look at other elements in this book. I'm just noticing this beautiful, to me, I think it's beautiful. I'll zoom in so we can see it. Over here on the left-hand page, there's some hair follicles. That's what those are. So the parchment is made of animal skin, and so what you end up oftentimes seeing is sort of remnants of the animal source. And so one of the main things that you'll see is hair follicles. You don't always see them. Sometimes, so the way parchment is made is that after the skin is removed from the animal, it's put on a frame and stretched and then scraped. And sometimes it's done very well, and you can't even tell the difference between the outside, which is we call the hair side, and then the inside, which is the flesh side. And sometimes you do get these remnants. This is interesting because I'm pretty sure this is the hair side, but you also see, I'm also seeing them on the other side. So maybe this was just a spot where there were a lot of hair. There was a lot of hair here. So Karen asks, why marginal triangles in some cases, circles in others? So it's hard for me to say because I haven't looked at the contents of this. I'm tempted to say that it depended on the mood of the scribe, because it seems like there are a lot of circles, and then the triangles come later. But I might be making that up because I haven't looked at every page. No, here we have triangles and them together. It could be because of the amount of text. I think you can maybe fit more, depending on the size, you can fit more text into a triangle than in a circle. But I don't know. That would be a really interesting something for someone to come in and look at and to see if what kind of difference there is. And then here we have a diamond, which is sort of a triangle, but not really. Let's see, Matilda says, I really like the red sparks around the side, geometrical shapes. Yeah, that's a nice little decorative element that isn't required, and yet the scribe did that, and I think that's lovely. Let's see, Amy says, we don't know. If you think of the Song of Songs as a dialogue, I know that the shapes do not represent the two different voices. Okay, that's really good to know. So it's not the two voices of the poem, so that's good. Tess says, the flipped foreground/background aesthetic is quite cool here. I like the unexpected high decorative framing of the lemmas. Agree with Matilda about the sparks. Yes. It's very neat. I like this manuscript a lot. So we'll just kind of keep looking through. Let's see. Martha says, it is a creative scribe, as they all were. I really think so. I love seeing the kind of things that scribes do. When I present to students in particular want to know, how much is the scribe being a person and how much is like what they had to do. And I don't really know because they're not around to ask, but I like to imagine them as people, All right, so much in the chat. Let's see. Carolyn, it's interesting that the circles have a black outline, but triangles don't, or it's lighter. So this one, I think this one has an outline, but this one doesn't. This one has an outline, that one does. I think some of them do and some of them don't. That is interesting. I don't know what's up with that. Let's see. Murray, I also love Dot's admission to the scribe's humanity. I'm bored with circles. I think so. Anna says, I don't know how the scribe's trained, but the lettering is done well. Maybe this was a production that began work on the decorations. Maybe so. Let's see. Actually, I haven't mentioned this. There are two scribes in this manuscript, I'm pretty sure. Let's see if we can find where it switches. So the first scribe wrote through folio 51 recto, which is most of the commentary on the Song of Songs. So this is the folio numbers are written down here in a sort of modern pencil. So we're almost to 41. Sorry, I said 51. 48, 49, 50, 51. So here is the end of the first scribe. Oh, look at this! More little red decorations here. That's very cool. Oh, there's more. I feel like this has got to be a scribe just wanting to do something fun here. Unless it could be an important. See, somebody needs to do a close reading of this manuscript because I don't know. So here's 51 recto, and supposedly there is a new scribe on 52 verso. Or let's see. I'm not a paleographer, but yeah, look at that. Oh, that is, and look, even these initials here. You see, we go from the previous one where we have initials with the red markings there, and then here we have a different highlight, and these are substantially different. Look at that. That is, and it happens from one side of a leaf to another. I'm so curious as to what happened. What happened? Why? Why did they do this? I don't know. Maybe the first scribe got sick and he had to take over mid-sentence, All right, let's look some more. This is also, by the way, this is also a hair side, or at least showing hair follicles. But they look really different, don't they? They're much smaller and sort of black. Okay, and here is the flesh side, which in color is really different. I wish, one of the things that I am particularly interested in when I look at manuscripts is what's called the collation, the physical collation, which is how the quires, which are the little booklets that are sewn together to make it are put together. And I didn't look at this ahead of time, but now I'm super curious to know where in the quire structure we are here. So we've got questions about the ruling. So there is still ruling. Let's zoom in. So there is still ruling here, this of the same kind of sort. We have the outer one. Murray is asking, where do we lose the red marginal rulings? Because I pointed that out early, and I don't know. Yes, Laura notes that there's this final word on the bottom of the page right here that was added in a pretty little thing. Let's see. Okay. So here, this is 48, and we have the red lines. 40, it can't be 48 because this is 47. 48, I think 48, 49. Interesting. So we go from 48 to 49, and we have this circle has the sort of design that we're seeing later, maybe? At least it reflects that. And then, so this is where we lose the red lines. So no more red lines after 48 verso. And Tess says red circle ahead of scribe change. Yes, because in the next page, we have more of these circles. So this is the previous scribes. Let's see. All right, Lynn is asking, I think Lynn is asking about this, if this is a catchword. So this isn't a catchword. A catchword you would expect to see here, because the purpose of a catchword is to indicate the first word at the top of the next quire to help the binder, whoever's putting the book together, to make sure that the quires are in the right order. And since this is on the same leaf, it's not a catchword. It's probably that the scribe skipped a word at the end of the page. And so they just came back immediately and added it at the bottom. So there we go. Oh, this is so cool. And look, this is after the scribe change, but we've got these little decorations again. But then we've got this, which is totally different. I love this. All right, somebody needs to get in here and write an article and look at that. More of these circles. So Guzwan asks, could the circle, triangle, etc. indicate the commentary from certain commentary like Jerome? So the thing is that the text that's in the circles is the biblical text, and then this is the commentary. So I guess it could be that this is saying that this commentary is from someone else, but it's also all by Haimo of Auxerre, so I don't know what that is. So this is a catchword, wobos, and then we have vobos up at the top of the next one. And I don't think there were catchwords in the first half either. So Amy has put in the last comment, so I guess it's time to go. This was really great, guys. I feel like we did some important work about this. So it's digitized if you follow the record. Yeah, we'll have to do this again. Let's do this again next week, or you can do this again next week with Nick. Thank you. We will see you all later on, and everybody have a great week and dream of interesting manuscripts.